We are very lucky today to have Miss Relina Shirley, co-founder and CEO of Hide It Mounts. We know each other on a personal, a professional level, and also a personal level. And
Definitely.
yeah, and I'm really, really glad that you were able to, we'll say, find the time to join us today.
Well,
Schedule.
gee, I seem to have a lot these days.
That's right. That's right. Usually a very, very busy person, but now schedule has been freed up for this call. So thanks for coming on PivotMe. So I would love for you to tell us about who you are and what you do and who you do it for.
All right, so the super quick lowdown is Hide It Mounts. We make wall mounts for game consoles, cable boxes, media players. So right now, when everyone's staring at that mess of cords and electronics, they're probably going to want our product. Whether or not they think they can afford it, I don't know. We'll see. But so basically, we are an online born business. Been in business for over a decade, and have basically seen the entire transition from, with social media to e-commerce, etc. So we sell on multiple resale platforms like Amazon and eBay, etc., as well as our direct website. We heavily advertise on various online um, ad platforms like Google, as well as social media, of course. So that's kind of a little bit about what we do. My role in the business definitely is predominantly on the marketing front, aside from obviously all of the big decisions have to have my stamp of approval. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. So that's a little bit on the business. So on the personal side, how are you guys coping right now?
well, I have three sons who are very active athletes who have now been cooped up in the house for a week. So I think that they're almost to the point that Fortnite is no longer as entertaining, and definitely are super antsy to get outside. Although we do live in an area that we have a walking path right behind us, which is super alluring and seems like a fantastic idea, except for everyone is out there.
Hmm.
So we are still cooped up inside for the time being, and it's definitely been quite a challenge because I enjoy working from home. I did it for many years, but I did it while the kids were not here.
Yeah.
With them here is a bit different.
Changes it, right?
It
Right.
does. It
So just
definitely does.
and just in a practical, like, how are you doing calls, for example? I mean, again, we were kind of talking about this before we officially started, but I mean, we're doing a video chat right now. How are you managing? Again, real talk is, how do you keep your sons out of the room while you're having this conversation? How are things not getting thrown around right now?
Well, right now, my husband had to politely escort my youngest one out so that he wouldn't be distracting. So there's that. But it's been entertaining. I'll be on a video call, and normally I'm facing the other direction, and so people can see the full space, which we, have a office attached to our master bedroom. So kids have come in and been jumping all over the bed. You can see the dogs lounging around, which is their favorite place to be when we're working from home. So it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think we're all facing this challenge, and I think that we're all going to have to give each other a bit of grace, that it's going to be this, and it's okay.
Hmm. Yeah. We were talking before we started about that it creates a humanness between us all, right? So
For
instead of
sure.
just always putting our best foot forward and sort of seeing our polished highlight reel, we're getting to see everyone's backstories now.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've had conversations with some people that I didn't even know the ages of their kids, and now I've seen their kids. I've seen their kids running in pajamas, or like a baby sitting on a lap. And there's actually something kind of comforting about that, because it reminds us that we're all in this together, right?
It's kind of funny because I agree with you, and that is gonna, I think, be some more of what we end up seeing from people. And in this world where everyone is just putting on this front on social media and things, you kind of don't have that same perspective anymore. No one's not too many people are going to be posting these just beautiful travel photos and all of the great things that they do. Now it's the real life. What are
Mhm.
you actually doing? And on a business side, yes, for people to actually see, like, oh yeah, she's also a mom, I forgot. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's definitely different for people.
Sure. Sure is. So as far as your staff, so is your staff in the office, field, virtual? What's your staff makeup, and what was it up until recently, and then what does it look like now?
So the way that our location is split up is
Oh, you paused. Hold on one second, Ray. Come on back. You're coming.
so in the office we have the ability to each other.
Ray, I
Are
lost
you
you.
there?
I think you're coming back now. Okay, now you're back.
There we go.
Try that
Ah,
again.
the joys, the joys. If they break the internet, we're really in a lot of trouble. That's
For
all I
sure.
know. It's gonna
For
be an issue.
sure. For sure.
But so our setup normally, our office setup or our location is half office and half warehouse. So we had a handful of people in the back in the warehouse, and then a few more in the front in the office. You know, the timing with spring break and things like that. I do have a couple of college students that work for me, so you know, they're kind of just gone right now. We did have a couple temps that we did go ahead and let go of for the time being. But then otherwise, everybody that was working in the office is working from home now. They're adjusting to that remote situation, and this week has actually been really good. I made the call before it was mandated, and I don't know that it's technically mandated for us at the moment, but I think it's just a better choice. And so everybody was able to take home everything that they needed to be able to work efficiently at home. And I think that transition has been actually very, very good. This week has been incredibly productive, and quite positive too. It wasn't like that surprise, you just need to take all your stuff and go. It was, okay, guys, take your time today. Like, go home midday once you have all your stuff packed up, go home, get it set up, get yourself comfortable. And so that's been a really good transition. The warehouse and the physical part of it has been a bit of a challenge. And right now, I'm not sure what that's going to look like. We're paring that down to really only in the necessary operations, which is essentially just fulfilling orders. And truth be told, right now, because we have also, like probably most everyone, seen a drastic decline in business, we do have the ability to probably get that done with one or two of us. And so that could mean literally Chuck and I going in and doing it, and that we don't necessarily need our staff to do that. We don't need to expose them. We don't need to worry about the safe distancing because, you know, I sleep next to him, so it's probably fine.
Sure, sure. And with the staff that went home and started working from home, and it sounds like you guys were ahead of the curve as far as preparation and okay, let's not rush this. Let's be strategic about it. Was that staff accustomed to working from home? And if they are not, like, have you guys hit hurdles of, oh, well, people, whatever that is, maybe their internet isn't as fast as they need to, or maybe they weren't a role that had a laptop. Have you, like, the actual practical application of, was everybody ready to just get right home and dial in, or did it take a little while for that adjustment to occur?
It definitely did take a little bit for some. No, none of them were used to working from home. I will say that since we do so much on social media, that some of us regularly worked nights and weekends, periodically hopping in. But I mean, some of that could just be done from your phone. As far as internet, I do have one who, she was a little bit challenged with it because there are several people in her household that work from home. So, you know, being as that we make mounts for a variety of devices, I do have excess devices that are, you know, routers and things like that, wireless boosters. And so I offered those up, but she ended up figuring out a solution, and it wasn't an issue. And I don't think she's had any problem aside from when the kids needed to get online for online school. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
it's definitely been a transition, although um I did try to take the approach of letting them know early on a Friday morning, so last week Friday morning, that this was the plan. Take your time, grab the things that you think you're going to need, because you're probably not coming back anytime soon. So take your files, take your computer, your monitors, everything that you need. And so everybody was able to kind of pack things up. They weren't rushed. It was, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, go home, take the time that you need to create a space that you can work in. I wasn't worried about whether or not they continued working the rest of the day or not. Some of them were up and running by noon, some were up and running at 2, some were up and running at 5.
Mhm.
And it wasn't really a concern because then they still had the whole weekend to figure it out and then deal with it on Monday morning. And on Monday morning at 8 a.m., everybody was ready to go. It was wonderful.
Sure, absolutely. What's the biggest hurdles you guys are facing now?
We do need to figure out financially how to weather this storm. So, last Friday in making that decision, and I feel like, to some extent, I feel like we were ahead of the curve, but really we were still pretty far behind. We probably could have, should have seen this coming a bit sooner. And so since we do sell heavily on Amazon, had been for a long time offering a loan, which is pretty much shark loans, like they're terrible.
Can you
But
describe what do you mean by shark loans? Just
well,
really high interest rates or
they're due back in a year. You
Mm,
pay them back immediately and it's a 1-year term. Like, it's not
gotcha.
that helpful.
Sure,
Um,
sure. It's a
Fortunately,
Band-Aid, very quick Band-Aid that
oh,
has to be pulled off very quickly.
yes, and fortunately, they had this, option, set up similar to what they had done not terribly long ago, pre-holiday season. Because obviously a lot of us have to ramp up inventory, but we don't get paid for it until holidays kick in, right? So, they did have a 3-month interest-only option, and so we went ahead and opted for that, and, which just makes the other 9 months payments much larger. But I figured, this was definitely a let's band-aid it for the time being and figure
Mhm,
out how to get through this. And so that did give me some safety and security, but we are still digging through the finances, trying to identify what we can adjust. Starting to make a list of vendors that we might be able to either push back services, pause services, or like even our landlord, like, can we negotiate, can we work a deal?
mhm,
Because I have an empty office right now.
mhm.
No
Sure.
one's there. So, those are the kind of things that we're working on. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can make some adjustments for that. But like even just little things like we do customer support through Zendesk, and we pay for 4 seats current, or we were paying for 4 seats, and each seat's like $125 a month. I was like, oh, we're going to turn that down.
Mhm.
So we don't need to have that many people on in at a given time. We're going to have to share the seats. I know they say that's a no-no, but sorry, Zendesk. It's either that or we
Mhm.
go through a different option.
Sure.
So, financially, that's the big challenge, is figuring out, okay, what does the forecast look like now? What do we think is realistic to expect? Do we think that in 30 days that we're going to be back up and running? I mean, at this point in time, I'm not sure. Nevada, we're looking at April 16th before we're doing much of anything. So, are our sales still at least going to still continue trickling in or not? Fortunately, we do have a lot of commercial clients that do large commercial AV integration, and we are still seeing orders from them. I think that this is a time, if everybody is working from home and not in offices, it's an opportune time to do some of those upgrades and things. So I'm
Mhm.
hopeful that we'll start seeing that uptick a little bit more. We have been contacted for product for some of the hospitals that are being quickly put together. So we'll see a little bit out of that, but generally, consumer confidence is low at the moment. They're definitely unsure. There's just so much uncertainty
Mhm.
that, how do we plan for that? Do we need to plan 3 months? I think we do. I think it's prudent to plan further out, expect the worst and hope for the best.
Mhm.
And that's what we're trying to do, but kind of it's like, I feel like a little bit we're sifting through the rubble to try to figure out where to begin.
Sure. Absolutely. So, it brings me to my next question is about how your business is pivoting. And what I heard in there is that commercial clients are still coming in and there might be some opportunity for either existing hospitals or all the makeshift hospitals that are happening. How
Mhm.
are you pivoting your business? I'm sure, and just to set the question up, everybody that I talk to, they're like, oh, I'm currently sitting here with a whiteboard or a pad of paper working on my pivot. So,
Yeah,
it's definitely dynamic, but have you thought about how you are going to pivot your business? Because in unprecedented times, there can also be unprecedented opportunity. So have you seen,
absolutely.
have you identified some opportunities, whether that's the new hospitals, what's out there for you to pivot towards?
Well, I will say that, not to be like a doomsday type of person, but looking at the market cycles, I anticipated another downturn regardless, right? So I had been thinking about what are some of the things that we want to do when, if and when that happens. I mean, it's really not an if, right? It's all cyclical. We know it's going to happen.
Mhm.
And so there are some things that I had been toying around with, not necessarily expecting that I would need to kind of start hitting the gas. But, as far as the business, the core business as it stands right now, we're still a little bit in kind of triage mode. What do we need to do just to keep things alive as it stands? Again, I have a little bit of security knowing that we have some money, but like that could go real quick. So we need to kind of put things in place to make that to conserve funds, conserve capital. But beyond that, there's other things that we've discussed. So, for example, we have built a pretty solid brand, and we have a lot of knockoffs, which I do think from just that stance that's going to create opportunity for us. I think we're going to be able to gain back a lot of market share. I think that they're going to struggle much more than what we do, because in order to compete with us, they've had to undercut us.
Mhm.
And much of their product is not made locally, or locally being in the US, whereas the majority of our product is. We do have some overseas manufacturing, but the bulk of it is still made here. And nonetheless, we're the brand. Without Amazon, they struggle. Amazon currently, and you're probably not aware, but Amazon currently is not accepting any shipments from non essential items.
Mm,
So,
mhm.
whatever inventory we have there is all we have there for I don't know how long.
Mm.
And so again, they sell only through Amazon. Many of them do not have their own distribution even in the United States. So again, I think that's going to create some opportunity for us to gain back some market share, which will be nice. Although people may not be buying that much right now, period. So we'll see.
Sure. But if you're getting a
Um,
larger slice of that pie that they are buying, because I know that
totally.
that's something you guys have struggled with is the copycats, all
Oh yeah.
the knockoff products, as you said, they
And
tend to
it's
run on
driven our
really,
margins
I
down.
was going to
It's
say they tend to run on really lean margins, which
yeah.
means that they often can't weather storms like this.
Correct. So, to me, that kind of is okay, let's see how that plays out. I'm hopeful that that means that we can actually raise our prices to a reasonable amount versus what we're doing right now, which is sometimes literally paying customers to take our product, which is outrageous. So hopefully we can get into a better situation with that. But because we've built a brand and because we know how to drive traffic to our website, we have I wouldn't say mastered, but we've become pretty adept at running online ads in the various places. That creates a lot of opportunity. And if people are going to start looking toward being online shoppers and not feeling that insecurity, that I can only trust buying it through Amazon, but now starting to trust buying it from other e-commerce channels. And I think just some of the conversations today even makes me realize some of these brick and mortar businesses that have thrived just fine until this, being strictly offline, are going to start looking at moving to online. I think that's going to increase consumer confidence in buying from smaller companies online, which all of that just helps us, because we had to leverage Amazon many, many years ago because of people not being confident buying from whatever random website. And if that shifts and turns, we really own that market, at least for our market. And we can certainly easily expand that by ensuring that we've got the eyes, we've got the SEO, we've got the advertising, we've got the eyes on our website already.
Mhm.
So now it's going to be okay, what other complementary products can we add? And kind of the shift between trying to be just a brand and a product company, or considering carrying more products and expanding into being more of an e-commerce presence, has been kind of this constant. What do we do? Do we dilute the brand or not? Like, can we become what Amazon might have been 15 years ago or whenever they started? And I think that now is an opportunity to really test that even further. We've tested it here and there with some products. But I think now is the time to up the ante on that. So that's one adjustment that we're going to be making, that again, I don't think it was anything new per se, but it just increases the viability of it as an area to expand. But then also, if these companies that are traditionally in-person businesses are looking to expand to an e-commerce front, the reality is that myself, I've always been searching for resources to get information on how to do it better, and insight into it. And while you can find a tremendous amount of information about Facebook advertising online, oftentimes it's geared towards services. It's not necessarily geared toward product companies.
Sure.
And I feel like that might be a way that I can give back and also create simply another business.
Sure, absolutely. And just thinking about our discussion as well. Thank you for that. I'm thinking about our discussion around your employees earlier. And in this time where a lot of people, to be honest, they're frightened.
Mhm.
What are you doing, whether it's with your staff or whether it's with your family or community, to kind of ease their concerns? And again, I'm not promoting, hey, let's ignore what's actually going on, but it's
Yeah.
more around, hey, some people are having conversations with their employees every morning and kind of having a virtual huddle and saying, hey guys, it's okay, we're
Mhm.
pivoting, we're looking ahead, don't worry, there's still going to be, food on your table. In some industries, that's not an option. We have some industries that have been really, really hard hit and had to do some pretty serious layoffs. Is there a way that you're managing that with your staff and kind of leading them through this?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. The office staff, the front of the house, the marketing team, that's where we're most robust, and so where we do currently have the most staff that I'm actively involved with. And with them, I mean, we're slacking all day long, right? So we're doing Zoom calls. We've had, normally anyways, we're following along with our normal schedule. I'm trying to keep as much normalcy as I can in the areas that we can. So meetings have all stayed on track. They're just on Zoom instead.
Mm.
We still have our one-on-one meetings also on Zoom instead. Now I've incorporated, because I do have a newer employee, I've incorporated some training that I'm doing, which is just it's awesome. I'm super excited because since I'm doing it on Zoom, it's being recorded. I've got the screen share recorded. I now am starting to build a database
Hmm.
of training for anybody and everybody down the road, so that I don't have to actually do it every time. So
Hmm.
no, but I think, with as far as the sentiment is concerned, I was very transparent with them that, number one, obviously seeing the writing a little bit earlier of like, no, you guys need to work from home. We need to keep safe. Um, but also I was transparent about them, about the loan with them, and that my whole purpose for that was to be able to keep them working and keep things moving forward, and that they really shouldn't have to worry. um
Wow.
and I can't take care of everybody for forever.
Hmm.
That is the hard reality that I could potentially have to face, and I don't necessarily want to. But at the same token, I went out with that, not knowing what kind of support we might be able to see down the road, not expecting any support.
Sure.
Now with that SBA disaster loan opportunity, that gives us the possibility to take that 1 year loan and actually have that extend out over 30 years, which would be much better. And at least I have the comfort in knowing that if there are any that I truly do need to lay off, that they will be able to obtain unemployment insurance.
Hmm.
So that kind of changes the perspective a little bit. I'm not going to make any moves and leave any of my team high and dry by any stretch of the imagination. And I have been very transparent about how important that is to me.
Sure. And that's great. And I think that they're lucky to have you as their leader. That's one thing that's for sure. One of the things that you touched on, I think is really important is, hey, I was training someone and I did a recorded Zoom call and now I have a training platform. So I think that just highlighted a great opportunity for many businesses that don't have some kind of, fixed training platform. This came up on another call where he was saying, well, typically I train in the office and now I'm not in the office with her. So I'm getting creative on how we do that. So I think this highlights a great opportunity, especially for small businesses that maybe don't have standard operating procedures, or, hey, sit down and watch this 60-minute video on how we do our, whatever it is, bookkeeping or our marketing. This is a great opportunity for not only the business owners, but the staff. That's a great way to repurpose them, right? Hey, this is how we create, a platform for your job, and to put it online. Or if you're going to bring on an intern or somebody else, this is the way to walk through what we're doing. We've touched on Zoom many times. The Zoom CEO has extended free accounts, which are amazing, so people can connect. But also, this is a great opportunity for businesses to leverage, where, all right, I'm going to talk through this process that we do, and we can do screen share so they can actually see every click of my mouse. And that is a great thing for people to be focusing on right now, because again, it not only gives us an important task to do right now in the moment, which is important because an idle mind right now could be a little dangerous. It's an important task, but also talk about dividends down the road, right? I mean, you could be using that for
Absolutely.
years.
Well, and the most recent training that I did with my team, um, it was something that I probably would have only trained my new person on. And instead, it was very easy for me to say, hey, why don't you guys just all participate in this half an hour Zoom with me, and you can learn it as well. And you may not need it, but at least you have that knowledge in case you do, it won't be completely foreign.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from a cross training stance, I'm actually really excited about that, but also future employee onboarding and things like that. I mean, it's going to make life so much easier.
Absolutely. So as far as resources, so you mentioned the SBA loan. What resources
Mhm.
have helped you in this time?
Well, I definitely have been involved with EO, and that's been pretty great. We had a call on Friday that was the whole chapter, and getting to hear kind of the insight. Our sponsors, we had banking professionals on there that were providing some insights, and letting us know what things look like with that SBA loan, what we need to do. For example, one of the things that came up that honestly I probably would have never thought of is that many of us in our business insurance have some sort of a revenue guarantee clause. And while right now they're saying that it does not apply to this situation, the suggestion is to go ahead and file those claims, expecting them to be denied. But that way, if there is a change in what the government's stance is in supporting and assisting small businesses through that, you have that paper trail already set up. So
Mm.
EO has definitely been tremendous as far as providing and sharing information. And otherwise, resource wise, definitely listening to what our community leaders are saying. It was great. I think you were listening to it as well, listening to our mayor, Hillary Sheevy, speak today, and give some insight. She herself, as a business owner, also. And yeah, I'm hopeful about that SBA loan. Real
Absolutely.
hopeful.
Absolutely. And just for reference, EO is Entrepreneurs Organization.
Yes.
What is there any habits that you're keeping up right now that's helping you, whether that's a morning routine, or you mentioned that, hey, we're still doing all our meetings and it's at the same time, and that's whether that's business or professional. Let me rephrase that. Whether that's business or personal, what habits are you maintaining right now?
Um, well, I had been in a phase of a lot of bad habits as far as just not taking care of myself. So this week, like I mentioned, has still been kind of just a lot of transition and adjustment. But I'm looking forward to having a bit more time to actually get back to a routine and regimen of working out. I will say that part of my challenge has historically been the eating out factor. Well, that's gone. And I used to cook a lot, and I'm actually cooking again, which I hadn't probably in like 2 or 3 years, really. And last night, because we did stock up on meat from a local supplier, because it was an incredibly safe situation. Sierra Meat and Seafood was wonderful, able to just order, and they literally just put it in the back of the truck, didn't even have to touch or encounter really anyone. But we opted to get a bunch of ahi, so last night we made sushi.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Sushi is quite an endeavor too, for not cooking to 2 or 3 years and going to sushi. I mean, man, you guys like went all out.
Tonight's pokey. Got to
Wow.
use up that ahi.
Got to go through it all. Yeah, of course. Is
Yeah.
there, so it kind of the flip side to that, and then just a couple more questions and we'll wrap up. But we talked about habits that you are doing now, things you are doing. One of the things that's come up on a few other calls is, what are you not doing? What are you staying away from? So I've heard a few things. Some of them are, I'm staying away from certain people because they are concerning to me, or maybe they're saying things that are, not serving me right now. I've seen some people putting the limits on social media. Hey, I'm going to check this much in the morning and this much at night, and then everything in between, I need to stay away from them. Is there anything like that you're implementing?
Well, I'm relatively vocal on social media often, so I will say that I am trying my best to shut down some of the pessimism. But at the same token, so that it doesn't impact me during the day, I have been on social not at all basically during the day, which is pretty unusual for me, I must admit. I've got my team that is handling social media for the business, and I'm trying to keep abreast of what information is being shared there, but I'm also trying to be very conscientious of, I'm not going to let that negativity in,
Sure.
and instead I'm going to try to um, rebuttal it a little bit and kind of let people know, like, hey, it is going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And I think that people right now are just too scared to see that, but like, it's all of us. We're in this together. We're all going to be okay.
Mhm. I think that's probably what people need to hear most, that they need to do their due diligence, that they need to take precautions and
Yeah.
do the things that our trusted experts have said, not necessarily like your neighbor or your cousin's friend, but the things that the
Yeah.
trusted experts have said. But also, I think people do need to hear that we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this, and never have we all been in this together so much as
Mm-mm.
right now. I mean, this is a global issue. If you had a piece of advice or encouraging words, just kind of in the same vein of what we're talking about, to business owners or really just anybody, what would you say to them if they were all listening right now?
Oh gosh, there's a couple things. One of the first ones I would say is, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. I feel like some are just making rash decisions out of fear. And the reality is that we need to kind of come together and support each other, and not allow the fear to take hold. Do we need to be prudent? Yes. Do we need to plan? Yes. Do we need to plan for the worst? Probably. But that doesn't mean that we need to allow that planning to take over what we think is really going to happen. We can still believe in the good. We can still believe that it's going to be fine, because it will be. It ultimately will be. This is something we're all going to remember. It's going to forever change all of us. But that doesn't mean that it has to change us in a negative fashion. It can certainly change us for the good.
Hmm. That's good. That's a really good point. Yeah. It's it's just a good reminder, and there's many of us, and I've mentioned this before, but especially as business owners or just parents, we're leaders in our community, we're leaders in our families, we're leaders in our businesses, and it's so important to maintain perspective. And also, this is a time where some people are really feeling a leadership gap, and
Yeah,
those of us, we have to stand up and fill that leadership gap. Like, people are actively needing us right now to step up, and sometimes people need to hear, it's going to be okay, we're going to do the right thing, we're going to do the next right thing, we're going to take our precautions, but we are going to get through this. But I think it's just, you said you're vocal on social media, which I've definitely seen. It's great. But I think that's so important to get out there, and you're saying combat the negativity, but also remind people, hey, we need to take the precautions, but we are going to get to the other side of this, and we can lock arms and do this together, because though we're experiencing social distancing, if done well, this can bring us together like nothing else has.
absolutely. And so you asked what I'm not doing, and I would say one of the big things that I'm not doing is I'm not putting my fears out there. I am human. Of course I have some fears. I watched Contagion last night, so of course I have some fears.
What? That's the one thing
Ah,
you're not supposed to do right now.
no, that was proper planning in my opinion. What is the worst case scenario and how do we prepare for it? And you know what, in all honesty, in watching that, which is a bit of a a terrifying movie right now, especially, you realize, oh, this isn't that bad. This is not as bad as that was in the movie, right? So, but no, I'm not putting my fears or concerns out there, um, other than just rational planning. Um, but I think that that's important. Some people are literally putting every bit of fear out as they come across it, and we kind of need to internalize that just enough to make sure it's even rational. If it's
Mm,
rational, okay, fine, so be it. But I think a lot of what's going out there isn't. And so I am not putting any of my fears out there, at this point in time. And I'm going to try my best to maintain that, because often our fears are irrational.
mhm. That's a really good point. That's because a lot of people are being a megaphone for everything that they're hearing,
Yeah.
and it's really it scares people. And it's different if it's from a verified source, but ultimately, I think we need to have a place that we can discuss our fears. But I don't believe that social media is it. I think that we have
Yeah.
maybe one or two trusted people that we can. Safe places we can go and say, "Hey, I'm concerned about this, and maybe this is rational, maybe this is irrational. I'm not sure." But designate those one or two people, and then keep it to them. But when people are putting it out and, hey, 1,000 people are going to hear that, well, so and so's brother just heard this, or I mean, it really does create a lot of unnecessary fear. So
Yeah.
it's a really good point.
I think I have put it out there a little bit with regard to the severity of this, of like taking it serious and not blowing it off, because
Hmm.
I have seen so many do that.
Sure.
But many are blowing it off for the sake of the fear of what's going to happen to the economy. And that part of it to me is such an irrational fear. Yeah, is it down right now? Yes. Is it down to 2008 figures? No.
Hmm.
No, we've been in worse. And did we survive it? Yes, we did. Shit, I started my business during that. So, will we be okay? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for your time today, Ray. It was great talking to you. And we're gonna put links to your business on this. But
Yeah.
let me ask one final question. How do we support you in this time? How do we, as Pivot Me listeners, support you during this?
I think that it's really easy to see the places that you would physically walk into that you can't now, and recognize that they are struggling. But don't forget about all of the small businesses that you support online. If you have the money to still make some of those purchases, do, because we're struggling too. It's just not as obvious because you don't walk in the door.
That's a really good point. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Oh, this was fun.
Thank you
That's
so
it's
much.
such a good point though, what you said about I'm not putting my fears out there. Like I think that was perfectly articulated because I think people are doing it under the guise of well, I want people to stay informed and I heard this piece of information, I want to share it. But like everybody's taking blow dryers and blow drying their nose because that supposedly kills the coronavirus. No, it doesn't.
Just stay in your house.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Right, right.
God.
I love the meme going around like our grandparents were called to war. We're being called to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. Like we can do that. And I think it's a really good point. But I do think that we also have to get proactive about um, entertaining. I mean, I'll tell you, we saw a shift in our kids this morning because our kids are younger. They're 6 and 9, but I think they kind of were just, they knew because they hear us talk about it and they know, we haven't seen anyone. We've kind of been self-quarantined since Sunday, I think it was. But um, it's interesting because I think it hit them like the gravity of it because they're like, when are we going to see grandma and grandpa? And I'm like, well, we're not. Well, can we see abuelo and abuela? No, we can't. Well, I don't understand why we can't do play dates. And so I've been doing Zoom calls with the kids so they could see. And like, let me tell you, talk about stressful. Like I need to leave the room because it's like 8 kids all yelling, and I was
Oh
like, stop
God.
yelling. You're talking over each other. Then I'm like, I need to just take my mom's self and go and sit in another room. So I
Yeah,
did.
let them do it.
Yeah,
Let
then
them
I
do
went
it.
with a rum and coke and a pizza. So that didn't work well. Like, let me tell you, the fitness competition I started on January 1st, that's on hold. But but
Well, we got to make do with whatever we have in our house right now.
yeah, right. Which I have a ton. Like I have a pull-up bar mounted to my home office right now I'm looking at. So I don't have any excuses. Just I realize that I'm a comfort eater through and through. Plus baking makes me feel like I have control. So like every night I'm like, baked a cake last night. I baked something else the night before. I was like, oh my gosh, Betty Crocker ain't got nothing on me. But I noticed that my kids are
Yeah.
starting to feel it, like, well, okay,
Yeah.
well, we're ready to go back. We're ready to go to Jumpman Jump, or we're ready to go to the park. Or so,
My oldest is 14 and he is a competitive soccer player and he's like, I want to go play.
oh
And
gosh.
this is hard because, he can only do so much. I mean, sure, he can do footwork and he can do things like that. But the reality is it's not the same when you don't have somebody to play against. And, he's at an age where it matters now.
Yeah,
Right.
I
So
bet.
that part's a little bit concerning. And so this week has been first week of spring break for them anyways. So we've just like, we focused on transitioning everybody for the business and kind of it's been free for all for them as far as like Fortnite junkies, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but starting this next week, we're going to kind of start creating a routine, making sure that we're getting some fitness and activity and things like that because clearly they need it. I mean, they're itching for it. And there's a lot we can still do. We just
Sure.
need to look at things differently.
Mm-hmm. We're doing the same thing too. We're starting the schedule starting Monday. We started the homeschooling thing right away, just for like, let's get in the habit of it. But again, I think it's also because they're young. They didn't realize like when's spring break, when's not. Like my 6-year-old's like, are we
Yeah.
going to school tomorrow? And we're like, no, we've explained it to her, but she still gets like tomorrow and yesterday mixed up. So
Cute.
so I was like, I've made this list of all these things we're teaching them. Like last week, I'm like, I taught them how to braid hair. And then it was like, I taught them how to throw a punch properly because we have a heavy bag in the garage, and like all these different things we're learning. So yeah, definitely making
Oh,
the
I'm
most of it.
losing you a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, my dear, thank you so much for this. I don't know if you can still
Are you
hear
there?
me. Can you hear me?
Can you stop what
Can
you're doing?
can you
You're,
hear
you're...
me? Okay,
Oh,
no,
there
it's all
you
good.
are.
It's all good. It's all good. So thank you so much. If you need anything, please, please,
Oh yeah,
please
for sure.
give me a text, email, and I wish you luck in this time. And
Thank
if there's
you.
anything I can do to help, let me know.